Kendrick, look up, look up, look up!
Think you've seen rap feuds before? You haven't seen anything like this one.
Hip-hop has never seen a beef quite like this. Two hip-hop titans going head-to-head.
Drake just lost his booking agent, his lawsuit, and his reputation. All because one guy from Compton decided he'd had enough. How did Kendrick Lamar turn one rap beef into a full-blown career meltdown for one of the biggest stars on the planet? Let's rewind, because to really understand how ugly 2025 got for Drake, you have to go back to 2024, when this stopped being about streams and started being about survival. In early 2024, Drake was still Drake, the algorithm's favorite son, the guy who never left the charts, the certified lover boy who could drop a mid-tier single and still pull in 9-figure streams without breaking a sweat. Kendrick, on the other hand, had been quiet on the music front but loud in the culture. People already saw him as the rapper's rapper, the one your favorite rapper respects, even if the casual fans don't have his songs on repeat. So when the tension between these two finally boiled over into open warfare, fans expected some bars, some memes, maybe a few clever punchlines. Nobody expected a career autopsy. The early shots felt like typical rap drama. Subliminals, sneak disses, Twitter theories, people connecting dots from old interviews and lyrics. Fans were arguing over who started it, who was really pressed, who was obsessed with who. But then Kendrick dropped Not Like Us into Be Creed, and things shifted immediately. This wasn't just a diss track. This was a campaign ad against Drake's entire brand. The beat was infectious, West Coast to the core, something you could dance to at a barbecue, while simultaneously listening to Kendrick tear down Drake's image line by line. That combination was deadly, a club banger that was also a public character assassination. Here's the thing, hip-hop loves beef, but usually the songs fade and everyone goes back to business. Not Like Us refused to fade. It became the soundtrack to the summer. People were playing it at weddings, games, clubs, and cookouts. TikTok had dance challenges. Memes were everywhere. Suddenly, hating on Drake wasn't just a niche internet thing, it was a social event. Friends who barely followed rap were joking that Drake got Kendricked, and every time that song came on, it wasn't just a W for Kendrick, it was a hit to Drake's reputation. And that reputation mattered because Drake didn't just sell music, he sold an image. For over a decade, he'd built this persona, the sensitive, calculated hitmaker who could survive any wave and spin any L into a W. You could clown him online, but he still came out on top. This time, the jokes didn't bounce off, they stuck. As more diss tracks dropped on both sides, the argument stopped being who had the better verse and became who looks worse as a person. Kendrick's angle wasn't just I'm better than you, it was you're not who you say you are, you're not like us. And as fans dug through lyrics, interviews, and old rumors, the narrative around Drake started curdling. Suddenly, things that were once brushed off as just jokes or internet hate felt a lot heavier. By the end of 2024, Drake was still charting, but the vibes were off. He wasn't untouchable anymore. Every move he made was being graded against this new standard Kendrick set. Authenticity, integrity, and real respect from the culture. Streams could still be bought, playlists could still be negotiated, but cultural respect? That was slipping. And then 2025 came knocking, and it was not kind. In January 2025, Drake made a move that told you everything you needed to know. He went to court. Instead of replying on wax, instead of trying to win back the narrative through music, he filed a lawsuit against Universal Music Group, accusing them of essentially sabotaging his career and mishandling how his music and image were being controlled and exploited. It was framed as defamation and misrepresentation, trying to regain control of how his name was being used and associated. On paper, a lawsuit looks strong. It says, I'm serious, I'm not just going to let people talk about me like this. But there's a flip side. When an artist starts suing in the middle of a public narrative spiral, it can look like desperation. It says, I can't win this in the court of public opinion, so I'm going to a literal court. The same internet that once celebrated Drake's cleverness now roasted him, Memes started flying. Kendrick gave him bars, Drake gave him lawyers. Side-by-side edits showed Kendrick in the studio and Drake in a suit, walking into a courthouse. The symbolism was brutal. Worse, the story didn't play out in his favor. By the time October 2025 rolled around, the defamation case was dismissed. Legally, that's devastating. Well, it means the system didn't buy what he was selling. Even if you dive into the legal details and say, well, defamation is hard to prove, the only headline that stuck in public memory was, Drake's lawsuit gets tossed. That's another L, but this time it wasn't just online discourse. It was official. Now, imagine the narrative from a fan's perspective. Kendrick cooks you on a track that becomes a cultural anthem. Your image takes visible hits, and then your big legal swing flops. At that point, everyone's asking the same thing. So what's next for Drake? Does he still move like the top guy? This is where the business side of the story gets very real. Behind every superstar, there's a small army. Managers, publicists, labels, and crucially, booking agents. These are the people who turn fame into money. Tours, festivals, residencies, brand deals, appearances. One of the most important figures in Drake's live business machine was Brent Smith, a heavyweight booking agent known for representing some of the biggest artists in the game. Smith worked at Wasserman Music, and here's the twist. He also had a relationship with Kendrick's camp. For a while, that overlap didn't matter. The industry is small, and top agents often share overlapping networks. But after Not Like Us and the ongoing fallout from the feud, that shared connection became a storyline. Behind closed doors, people started asking, how is Drake supposed to move when the guy booking his shows also has ties to the man who just torched him publicly? In an era where narratives are everything, even the perception of split loyalty can feel like a problem. By November 2025, reports started surfacing that Drake had quietly dropped Brent Smith as his booking agent. No big announcement, no emotional statement, no messy public breakup, just a quiet strategic uncoupling. On its own, changing agents is not unusual. Artists do it all the time, but placed in this context, after this year, it felt like a concession. The beef with Kendrick wasn't just some songs, it was reshaping Drake's real-life business decisions. And Drake didn't just walk away, he moved somewhere else. He linked up with CAA, Creative Artist Agency, one of the most powerful talent agencies in the world. That's like switching from one super team to another. On paper, it's a power move. Tighten your circle, align with a new squad, reset your touring and brand strategy. But even a power move can feel reactive if it comes after months of losing control of the narrative. Fans and insiders read the move two different ways. On one side, some said, this is Drake reloading, new team, new strategy, new era. He's not done. That camp believes wealth, catalog, and global appeal will always give him a route back. Drake still commands huge streaming numbers. He still has a staggering fan base spread across multiple generations of listeners, from the Take Care era to TikTok kids who discovered him through snippets and memes. With the right tour, the right album, and the right features, a comeback is absolutely possible. On the other side, there's a darker read. This is damage control. Dropping your agent in the wake of a feud that hurt your public image doesn't look like a regular business shuffle. It looks like rearranging the deck chairs after the storm, especially when the timing lines up with a dismissed lawsuit and an entire year of public perception eroding. Meanwhile, Kendrick's side of the equation looks starkly different. The diss campaign that began as a lyrical sparring match morphed into something historic. Not Like Us didn't just trend, it lingered, it dominated. Critics and fans began calling it one of the most devastating diss tracks in modern hip-hop memory. And the industry responded. When award season rolled around, Kendrick's diss records didn't just get attention online, they got official recognition. Grammy recognition. The fact that a diss track, or a cluster of diss tracks in that saga, could be up for Grammys and actually win redefined the stakes of rap beef. It meant this wasn't some petty side quest in Kendrick's career, it became a major decorated chapter. For other rappers watching, it sent a message. Under the right conditions, a beef handled masterfully can elevate you artistically, critically, and financially. Now put yourself in Drake's shoes for a second. For years, he was the awards' darling. Chart records, plaques, historic streaming milestones. Suddenly, the guy who bodied you on wax is not just winning in public opinion. He's walking on stage at the Grammys being celebrated for the very songs that dismantled you. That's not just rivalry, that's legacy. Public perception rode that wave hard. As Kendrick's cultural stock soared, Drake's became shaky. Clips from old interviews resurfaced and hit differently. Past controversies were now viewed through a harsher lens. People who once defended him now shrugged and said, low-key, Kendrick might have just said what everyone was thinking. The jokes about Drake being soft or corny mutated into something more cutting, that he was manufactured, overly protected, and now unable to weather a real challenge. On social media, the memes told the story better than any think piece. Videos of Drake dancing cut against Kendrick's hardest lines. Edits where every time Drake spoke, the audio cut to the opening of Not Like Us. Fan-made trailers titled The Fall of Drake stitched together courtroom footage, news headlines, and clips of Kendrick performing to roaring crowds. When your career becomes meme fodder, you're in trouble. Not because memes always reflect reality, but because they shape the vibe around your name. And vibe is currency. In hip-hop, you don't just sell songs, you sell the feeling of being aligned with the winner. For over a decade, riding with Drake was like betting on the safest stock in the game. In 2025, that stock suddenly looked volatile, still valuable, but not guaranteed to go up forever. Some fans leaned out, some stuck with him but with less enthusiasm. Others doubled down, painting him as a victim of a cultural pile-on. Meanwhile, business people weren't just watching, they were calculating. Promoters had to ask, if we book Drake for a festival, do we get controversy or clout? Brands had to wonder, does putting Drake in our campaign invite backlash, or are we still getting an untouchable superstar? Even if the actual numbers remain strong, the uncertainty alone changes how deals are structured. Maybe fewer long-term, image-heavy partnerships. Maybe more performance-based deals. Maybe more private events and fewer headline public moments. This is the core lesson the Drake-Kendrick war just taught the world. A rap beef, when it hits a certain scale, stops being just music. It becomes a reputational war that can knock over real business dominoes. Look at the chain reaction. A diss track becomes a global hit. That hit reframes an artist's image in millions of minds. That new image intensifies old criticisms and suspicions. The artist tries to fight back not just with music, but with lawsuits and strategy changes. The lawsuit fails, cementing publicly that the narrative isn't going his way. Business partners get changed, agents are dropped, new agencies are joined. Award shows crown the rival for the very records that sparked this collapse. Public discourse hardens. Jokes become the default language around your name. No matter how rich or famous you are, no one's invincible in that situation. Of course, it would be a mistake to act like Drake is finished. Artists have come back from worse. In hip-hop, reinvention is almost a standard requirement. There are paths back. He could disappear for a while, truly go silent, and resurface with a stripped-down, undeniably great album. Something that doesn't chase trends or playlists, but focuses purely on sharp writing and vulnerability without leaning on old formulas. He could pivot into a new era publicly. Older, more self-aware, admitting to losses instead of pretending they didn't happen. The culture often respects transparency more than polished PR. A Drake who says, "Yeah, that era humbled me," could resonate more than the eternal winner persona that now feels broken. He could double down on live shows, using touring to remind people why they loved him in the first place. When you stand in front of tens of thousands of fans all screaming your lyrics, you're reminded that Twitter and TikTok are loud but not the entirety of reality. With CAA behind him, he has the infrastructure to mount massive tours, festival headlining runs, or even innovative residencies that cement his staying power. But none of those roots erase what 2024 and 2025 did to his reputation. the Kendrick beef, Not Like Us, the legal loss, the agent shakeup, the Grammy recognition on the other side, those are permanent marks in rap history now. Even if Drake finds a successful new chapter, this will always be the chapter where he got outplayed, out-argued, and out-respected. And that's why this story matters beyond just fan drama. For upcoming artists watching, it's a cautionary tale. If your entire brand is built on dominance, invincibility, and narrative control, then one opponent with the right timing, the right records, and the right moral high ground can crack it open. Not because they canceled you with a tweet, but because they forced people to see you differently. Once people see you differently, every business relationship you have has to adjust. A booking agent is not just someone who gets you shows, they are a reflection of your leverage. Dropping an agent you once shared with your rival is more than a contract change. It's a symbol of where the power shifted. Signing to a new agency after the storm says, "I'm trying to reset," but the fact that a beef got you to that point says, this wasn't just art. This hit your infrastructure. Kendrick's win over Drake wasn't just about better bars. It rewired the power structure around them. Kendrick came out with a stronger cultural position, critical praise, Grammys for the diss, and a public that sees him as the more authentic and morally solid artist. Drake, meanwhile, was left with a dismissed lawsuit, a reshuffled business team, a damaged image, and uncertainty over his next chapter. Both will still make money and sell out shows, but only one walks into every room as the clear winner of this war, while the other carries the visible scar of trying everything and still losing.